Hello, and welcome back to Spin Cycle Live. I am your host, Nathan Hale, and boy, do we have an action-packed Friday for you. Before you get into all of it, I just want to let you know, I hope you have a great rest of your day. I hope you have a great weekend. I hope you've been enjoying yourself this week. Today is Friday, June 20th, 2025, and gosh golly, we got so much to get into. If you're not already following me on YouTube, Rumble, Instagram, X, TikTok, all the platforms, you can find me at Homo Nati on those platforms. You can follow the show. It's Spin Cycle Live. This very show you're watching is streaming on YouTube, Rumble, and X right now. So if you prefer to watch on one of those different platforms, go over there, subscribe. You know, YouTube and Rumble is a place to be. X is like, okay, I don't mind streaming on X, but it's good to get it out there and everything. And if you missed the show, you want to watch it again, or you just prefer to watch it on a different day, we stream these very same shows on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. So a little bit later in the day if you prefer to watch then. But without further ado, let's get into our very first story today, and that comes from The Independent. So, some U.S. restaurants and servers oppose Republicans' no tax on tips budget proposal. Now, I saw this and I was like, what could they possibly be against with this that is not completely nefarious, right? So I was like, I gotta read this article. I gotta share it all with you, right? Well, I like to share stories on this show that you don't tend to see from maybe other media outlets, some things that are more interesting. You know, this show is always stories that are interesting to me, and I think that things that interest me might be interesting to other people. That's why I do the show. So let's get right into this one. All right. Some segments of the U.S. restaurant industry don't support President Donald Trump's proposal to eliminate federal taxes on tips, saying it would help too many people and obscure bigger issues in the way, it would help too few people and obscure bigger issues in the way tipped workers are paid. The Independent Restaurant Coalition, which represents nearly 100,000 restaurants and bars, has appealed to Congress to reconsider the proposal, which is part of the president's spending bill. Even some workers who rely on tips say they oppose making them tax deductible. I think there's a huge hole in this concept of no tax on tips because a lot of restaurant workers aren't receiving tips in the first place, said Ayana Kali, a bartender in Austin, Texas, and president of the Restaurant Workers United Union. Quote, "It's not helping most kitchen workers, and oftentimes those are the people who are being paid the least." The National Restaurant Association, a trade organization that represents nearly 500,000 U.S. restaurants and bars, applauded the House's passage of Trump's spending bill and said it wants to see tax-free tips. The association estimates the measure would benefit more than 2 million servers and bartenders. But the U.S. restaurant industry has more than 12 million workers, including dishwashers, chefs, according to government data. The Independent Restaurant Coalition says that, quote, no tax on tips proposal leaves out too many of those workers. The coalition wants Congress to eliminate taxes on service charges, which are being used to compensate employees at an increasing number of restaurants. Around 15% of restaurants add some of these service charges to customers' bills, according to the National Restaurant Association. George Scanlatos, a pizza restaurant owner in Moscow, Idaho, was tired of seeing servers count out hundreds of dollars of tips at the end of the night while people in the kitchen scrub the floors on their hands and knees. So he started experimenting with different compensation models. Scalandos now has a gratuity-free policy at his restaurant. He charges a 20% service fee that is distributed to all employees and helps pay for benefits like paid vacation and parental leave. The vast majority of customers appreciate the effort, he said. Scalandos said no tax on tips doesn't acknowledge restaurants like his that are trying to distribute pay more equally. He would like to see service charges exempt from taxes. But Ted Papagorge, the Secretary-Treasurer of the Culinary Workers Union Local 226 in Las Vegas, said restaurants should just pay their kitchen workers more to compensate for servers earning tips. Papa George wants Congress to take up a separate bill introduced by Nevada Democrat Steve Horsford that would eliminate taxes on tips, but would require restaurants to pay workers at least the federal minimum wage of $7.25 an hour. In 43 states, restaurants are currently allowed to pay tip workers as little as $2.13 per hour. So, a little bit of context why this interests me. So, number one, I used to be a restaurant worker. I actually worked several different restaurant jobs as well as service jobs in the past. So I'm very familiar with working class restaurant personnel. I was a crew hand, I was a dishwasher, I was a server, I was a manager. I did all the positions, all of them, in several different food service locations, right? So I'm very familiar with tipping and how that all goes down, right? In my opinion, tipping culture in the United States is completely out of hand, right? We're like the only country that tips the way that we do. Other countries do this kind of service charge that other restaurant was saying, where it's just automatically better, or they just pay their restaurant staff fairly, for God's sake. So this whole like, oh my gosh, it's rude if you tip under 20 or 18%, even if you had a terrible experience, is insane, right? And I think it's so dumb that we allow restaurants to pay their servers less money per hour just because they're getting tips, right? So, like, what restaurants are essentially saying is that, hey, you're less valuable to me as an employee, so I'm going to pay you less money, but you'll make it up with your tips, right? Versus saying, no, tips are a bonus for you to do good service. They're not meant for you to live off of, right? So I think tipping culture is just out of control in the United States in general. But I don't have an issue with no tax on tips. Getting to what some of these people are saying about dishwashers and restaurant staff in the back, as long as they're getting paid minimum wage, I really don't care. I really don't think that they should be entitled to tips of the servers. I think that it was something that was brought up that I didn't really read, was that guy who did the whole service charge thing. He was experimenting with doing a tip out system, which I think is completely ridiculous. I'm not a fan of servers sharing their tips. If you get a tip as a server, that should be your money, not anyone else's. You know, I'm a fan of lower tax in general. So yeah, I'm perfectly in favor of you taking tips off of service charges and everything, as long as those service charges are actually money going to the service, right? Because I'm always concerned when I go to restaurants, I do see a service charge. I'm like, are the restaurant staff actually getting this? Like, do you actually get that money? And like, I'll give you an example. So even at some restaurants, if you pay by card, for example, they do a tip out system. So a certain percentage of that card tip goes to the busser and the dishwashers and the cooks in the restaurant, and a certain percent goes to the server, right? So I don't know. I'm a fan of lower taxes in general, but I'm a bigger fan of just pay your restaurant staff in the back of house more money, what they're actually entitled to be getting, and pay your staff reasonably for the work that they're doing for you, or don't have that restaurant. So I think that a lot of us sit on our high horse a little bit too much and say, well, you know, the restaurants have to make money and everything, or the restaurant owners have to make money and everything, right? And they should be entitled to pay their servers whatever they want. Yeah, well, these people have families, though. Some of these people have families. Now, I get it if you're crunching down people who work, like, at a McDonald's, right? That's a little bit different than working at, like, an actual established restaurant for wages and everything. I mean, the clientele is just different. So I get it a little bit more there, but anyways, I just thought this was an interesting article. I had never considered that some people might not be a fan of this. And I think that this title might be a little bit misleading in that I don't think people are necessarily against not taxing tips, but they just want to see a more equitable way of sharing out how they're paying their staff and having no tips across the board on, like, additions to that, such as service charges. So a little bit misleading title there, but interesting article. All right. Next article comes from the Huffington Post. Pump the brakes a second. not advocating for the Huffington Post. I just need an article that said this headline. So Trump delays the TikTok ban for a third time. President Donald Trump on Thursday signed an executive order to keep TikTok running in the United States for another 90 days to give his administration more time to broker a deal to bring the social media platform under American ownership. It is the third time Trump has extended the deadline. The first one was through an executive order on January 20th, his first day in office, after the platform went dark briefly when a national ban approved by Congress and upheld by the U.S. Supreme Court took effect. The second was in April when White House officials believed they were nearing a deal to spin off TikTok in a new company with U.S. ownership that fell apart after China backed out following Trump's tariff announcement. You know, Trump really loves to edge the girls with the whole TikTok ban, right? This is the third time that we've had a potential TikTok ban happen in the United States with still no results of when that's actually going to happen, right? At this point, I kind of just want TikTok to be banned just so we stop having these oh, we're going to ban it. It's going to be banned in 3 days. Oh, wait. Don't worry, guys. We extended it. It's okay, right? I kind of want them just ban it at this point, right? And I'm an advocate of TikTok. I thought the whole TikTok ban thing was stupid in the first place. I watched the testimony for it. I thought that what a lot of these people in Congress had to say was kind of ridiculous. So I'm an advocate of TikTok. I love TikTok. I watch TikTok all the time. I think TikTok's a great app. Is it Chinese spyware? Probably. But either take a crap or get off the pot, Trump, right? Either ban TikTok or come to an agreement, right? Don't keep extending this out, right? Because as far as I'm concerned, we're going to be 4 years in and we're going to be on the 20th TikTok extension. So at this point, I don't think a deal is ever going to happen because the Chinese aren't stupid. They're like, well, we'll just keep saying that we'll make a deal with them. And then we'll back out at the last second. And then we'll just extend it again. So I'm waiting for that extension to not come, right? When's that going to happen? So just thought that was interesting. All right. Blaze Media has a story about Trump's big legal win over Newsom. Losing streak continues as Ninth Circuit Court delivers Trump more great news. So this has to do with the whole LA riots and everything. I have a few pictures to show you in just a second that I found. So the U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit overruled a Clinton judge and delivered some bad news to Governor Gavin Newsom that might wipe the default grin off his face. He does seem to have a grin always kind of plastered on his smug face. I'm so excited to never see him again in politics, right? I really can't wait to see who replaces him. I hope it's someone at least a little bit better than Gavin Newsom in California. Hopefully not Kamala Harris. God. So exercising his constitutional and statutory powers, President Donald Trump deployed the National Guard to Los Angeles on June 7th, noting that the anti-immigration and customs enforcement riots constitute, quote, a form of rebellion against the authority of the government of the United States. Newsom, among the many Democrats who downplayed the violence and appeared sympathetic to the rioters' cause, asked a federal district court judge to force Trump to surrender control of the federalized California National Guard. U.S. District Court Judge Charles Bayer, a Bill Clinton appointee, sided with Newsom, claiming on June 12th that Trump's actions were illegal, both exceeding the scope of his statutory authority and violating the 10th Amendment of the United States Constitution. Newsom subsequently told Trump, quote, you must relinquish your authority of the National Guard back to me and back to California, then smugly attacked the president in a press conference when he called Trump weak. You can say a lot of things about Trump. That man is not weak. That's for sure. The governor's gloating was cut short when the Trump administration appealed to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals and secured an emergency ruling to return command of the National Guard to the president. The court also recognized that Trump had, quote, a colorable basis for deploying the National Guard, citing evidence that the anti-ICE rioters, quote, interfered with the ability of federal officers to execute the laws through objects at ICE vehicles attempting to complete a law enforcement operation, threw Molotov cocktails and vandalized property, pinned down several Federal Protection Service officers defending federal property by throwing concrete chunks, bottles of liquid, and other objects, and used large rolling commercial dumpsters as a battering ram in an attempt to breach the parking garage of a federal building. Quote, big win in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals on the president's core power to call in the National Guard, the president wrote on Truth Social. Quote, the judges obviously realize that Gavin Newsom is incompetent and ill-prepared, but this is much bigger than Gavin, because all over the United States, if our cities and our people need protection, we are the ones to give it to them, should state and local police be unable, for whatever reason, to get the job done. This is a great decision for our country, and we will continue to protect and defend law-abiding Americans. Congratulations to the Ninth Circuit. America is proud of you tonight, added Trump. This is great. What's been happening in California is crazy. It looks similar, almost worse in some cases, to what happened during the BLM protest. I got some pictures for you right here. This was the thumbnail image. This guy right here. Can I blow this up at all? No? Maybe not. This guy right here, he's smashing a skateboard into the window of a police car that is spray painted, while behind him there is another police car that is literally on fire. Here's another picture of several police cars that are also on fire in the middle of the street. Here's another car that is on fire. I think there's a convenience store down. Yeah, here's a convenience store. Here are people looting into an ABC Market convenience store. Pile of garbage in the street. Another car on fire, guy jumping off it. Just fire everywhere. Fire here. Here's a guy kicking a border patrol vehicle. I mean, it's just insane. I guess these are the remnants of some firebomb cars in LA. You could not pay me enough money to go and live in California, I swear. I know there's some nice parts of that state, but God, how could anyone want to live there while this is happening? How do they still have like the highest population in the entire country? It's crazy to me. Absolutely wild. All right. So from Breitbart News, Senate version of One Big Beautiful Bill removes regs on suppressors short-barreled rifles. The Senate Finance Committee's version of President Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill contains the removal of suppressors and short-barreled rifles from the National Firearms Act, NFA. On May 22, 2025, Breitbart News reported that GOP-led House passed budget reconciliation, Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill, with language to eliminate the tax and registration requirement on suppressors. Representative Andrew Clyde used a post on X to explain the Second Amendment victory secured in the bill's language for House passage. One of my key priorities throughout this process has been restoring our constitutional 2A rights, which have been subjected to unconstitutional infringements for the last 90 years under the draconian NFA. The original bill text only removed the $200 transfer tax for suppressors. Now the bill eliminates both the transfer and making tax for suppressors as well as the registration. This is a massive 2A victory, one that takes important steps towards restoring our constitutional freedoms. On page 263 of the Senate Finance Committee's version of the bill, short-barreled rifles are addressed under the heading, quote, elimination of tax on certain devices under National Firearms Act. Look, this is great. I'm a fan of removing taxes across the board. I'm not a fan of the government taxing me for things, especially for a suppressor. So, I mean, if you are big 2A advocates out there, I hope that you see this as the win. If this isn't a win, let me know why not. Send me a message on X. Let me know. I'd be interested to know. I'm not the biggest like 2A advocate out there. That's not to say that I'm not a fan of the Second Amendment. It's just not my biggest expertise out there. So there's plenty of other reporters. Not that I'm a reporter necessarily, but there's plenty of other influencers, if you want to call me that, who are much bigger Second Amendment supporters than I am. Like I said, not that I don't support the Second Amendment, but I'm just not familiar with everything that has to do with guns in the United States. It's just a fact of the matter. So I think this is great. I'm glad to see it. So lower tax on everything across the board as far as I'm concerned. All right. Our last story we have. This is interesting to me. Tulsi Gabbard, Pete Hegseth excluded from Trump's Iran deliberations from a new report. As President Donald Trump considers joining Israel's military strike against Iran, prominent members of his national security team reportedly have been excluded from the decision-making process. Trump is apparently relying on more seasoned advisors rather than officials like Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and Tulsi Gabbard, the Director of National Intelligence. Israel wants the United States to drop so-called bunker buster bombs on sites where it believes Iran is developing nuclear weapons. No other country has the 30,000 pound bombs or aircraft capable of deploying them. Trump's latest comments came after he met with advisors in the White House Situation Room, CNN reported, but neither Gabbard nor Hegseth played a key role in discussions surrounding potential strikes on Iran. The Washington Post reported, the Post cited anonymous, quote, current and former officials and people close to the White House. Quote, nobody is talking to Hegseth. The Post quoted one official as saying, quote, there is no interface operationally between Hegseth and the White House at all. The Post said Trump is relying on advice from four officials, Vice President J.D. Vance, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, CIA Director John Radcliffe, and General Dan Kane, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Other military leaders have also weighed in, the Post reported. Trump has reportedly grown disillusioned with Gabbard, a former Democrat congresswoman who he chose to oversee the national intelligence agencies. He has disputed her report to Congress that Iran does not appear to be building a nuclear weapon. He reportedly became displeased when she recently posted a video warning about the danger of nuclear war. She described the world that is, quote, closer to the brink of nuclear annihilation than ever before, while, quote, political elite and warmongers are carelessly fomenting fear and tensions between nuclear powers. Vance defended Gabbard in a statement, quote, she's an essential member of our national security team, he said, and we're grateful to have her tireless work to keep America safe on the foreign threats. Hegseth's standing in the administration reportedly suffered after he shared information about U.S. strikes against Houthi rebels in Yemen on the commercial messaging app Signal, which inadvertently included a journalist from The Atlantic. Trump ignored calls to fire Hegseth over the security breach. So here's my whole question. Where's the lie in all of this? Where's the lie? Because as far as I'm concerned, the world is closer to nuclear annihilation than ever before. You can go look at any experts out there who know anything about where we are nuclear-wise to tell you this. So where's the lie there from Tulsi Gabbard? Where's the lie? Okay, second claim. Iran is not, in fact, developing a nuclear weapon, but is, in fact, just developing nuclear energy. Where's the lie? Now, I'm not going to stand here and say that unequivocally Iran is not developing a nuclear weapon. It's very possible they are. But at the same token, I trust Tulsi Gabbard's opinion a lot. Tulsi Gabbard's one of the main reasons why I voted for Donald Trump. In fact, I would argue that I would trust her opinion far more than I would trust Donald Trump when it comes to anything that has to do with wars, considering she literally fought in one. Several, in fact. For years. So where's the lie there, right? My question is, if the Director of National Intelligence is saying that Iran is not developing a nuclear weapon, where is the intelligence to say that they are developing a nuclear weapon, right? Wouldn't she have that intelligence as a National Intelligence Director to know what they are and aren't doing? Just saying. I don't know what to say about Pete Hegseth. Pete Hegseth came out of nowhere for me, for him being a part of the administration, especially as defense secretary. I don't know what's going on with him. I don't know why the heck he's not being included in these meetings. We're having a conversation about going to war with Iran, and the defense secretary isn't a part of those conversations? What's going on in the administration right now? What did Tulsi Gabbard say? Let's read that quote again. Also, J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio, how are they any more or less qualified to discuss going to war with Iran than Tulsi Gabbard and Pete Hegseth? Just saying. So what did Tulsi Gabbard say? She said something about warmongers. She said, she described the world as being closer to the brink of nuclear annihilation than ever before, while political elite and warmongers are carelessly fomenting fear and tension between nuclear powers. Where's the lie? Once again, where is the lie there? That's what's been happening in Congress since 9/11. We've always had warmongers in Congress. We've always had warmongers running our government, trying to get us into more war, because wars cost a lot of money. Private companies love that. Why do you think all these defense companies donate so heavily to people's political campaigns? Because they make a crap ton of money when the United States buys their weapons to then go to war with them, right? Just saying. So where's the lie? Is all I have to say about this. Where's the lie in all of this? So, I don't know. I'm a little disillusioned if this is in fact true and Trump has just completely kicked these two people out of the discussions for what's going on right now. They have two perfectly valid opinions. I mean, Tulsi Gabbard's right. We are closer to going to nuclear war with each other. Where is the lie there? So, I'm just saying. It's concerning to see that. It's concerning to see a president who campaigned on being so anti-war and appointed people who are anti-war in ways such as Tulsi Gabbard is, now all of a sudden even entertaining the idea of going to war with Iran. Even entertaining that idea. And if there is an American that is sent to war towards Iran, if there is an American that is killed by Iran because of this pointless war that we are getting ready to, seems like, start, I don't want to hear any conservative ever say again that Trump is anti-war. It's concerning to me to see this, right? We were promised things on the campaign trail. And that's what we were getting for quite a while. And now it seems like we're really kind of dropping the ball a little bit. We were promised anti-war. We promised the end of the Ukrainian war, the Gaza war. We promised the end to all these things. And now we were promised the end of two wars. And now it seems like we're going to be starting a third war. So many wars happening. So, with no end in sight, we'll be sure to keep you updated on all these stories as they happen. But with that, folks, that is the end of today's episode of Spin Cycle Live. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. I love doing these to you. I love spouting my loud mouth off on the internet. How could you not? So, if you enjoyed this show, please share with your friends. Let people know how great it is. Tell people to go and watch it. Tell people how great my opinions are. We've been doing a lot to improve the show for you all. And I hope it's slowly making its way through. We had a few technical difficulties happening over the past few weeks, but now I feel like we should be smooth sailing for quite a while now until inevitably something new changes. So thank you all for bearing with me so much, and I hope to see you all again on Monday. If you did miss the show, it will be re-airing tomorrow at 8 p.m. on X only. Reruns are only on X. Live shows, X, Rumble, YouTube, those three platforms. Make sure you're following me on all of the platforms at Home118 if you're not already. And interact with me online, right? Send me a message. At me in a post. Ask me a question. I see them all. I'll try and get back to you if I can. But with that, I'll have a great rest of your day. I have been Nathan Hale. This has been Spin Cycle Live. And with that, I will see you on the next one. Peace out.